So I am going to talk to you for a moment about watercolor resists. So a resist happens when you use either crayons or oil pastels, both of which are made with wax or oil. And when you put the water from the watercolor on top, they resist each other, meaning the watercolor will get shoved off of where the crayons are. So you can even use pretty light crayons too. So for example, I go ahead and add more details in my picture with just crayons, and you know, as beautiful as yellow is, it's not necessarily the easiest thing to see, although I know you can see it from the camera. You can even use white. You don't have to use light colors too. You can use whatever colors you want. And I'm coloring in this shape, although you can't see it so well right now. And then I'll go ahead and do some darker pieces that you can see better. Take your time, color well. And then a resist happens again when I'm going to put the watercolor paint on it. Okay, so my paintbrush is damp. If you need to clean it, remember to swoosh, not splash. And then I can go ahead and get the color that I want. You might have to swirl it to get it damp. And then when you put it on top of the crayon or oil pastel, you can see I'm painting right over top of it, and it resists it, it shoves it off. I can even do this section that I had painted white, and you can see that it's making a few little beads of paint because really the crayon is there, so it's shoving off of all of the paint. So you can add all kinds of details in that way too. I'll go ahead and do this a little bit right here where I colored blue. And again, I'm painting right on top of it, but it doesn't look like it because it's getting shoved off. So you could do something like that. All right, so let me do one more thing. You could put like a secret message. You could write your name and then put the paint over it. So one other thing you can do that's not really a resist, well, I guess it is kind of a resist, is the salt trick that I'm sure that I've done with most of you before. So you can see the white lines there. So the salt trick, to do this, it has to be on wet paint. So let me get some more wet paint so you can see it really well. Turning into a little bit of not a masterpiece, but that's okay. And to use the salt, I'll have it in little containers. Hopefully it'll get labeled for you. But anyway, don't just dump a bunch, all right? Think of it like your food. You just want a little bit. If it's too salty, it turns bad. So put a little pinch. Make sure this gets put back to the right spot. And sponge is so dry that it ends up working like, salt is so dry that it ends up working like a sponge. And you can see the salt is starting to soak up the paint where it was wet. So when it's dry, you can flake off the salt. So again, in the next art class. And then what will happen is it'll almost leave like little starbursts of color. This does not work with tempera paint, the other type of paint. It only works with watercolor. It can be this type of watercolor or the kind that's already liquidy, but it's got to be watercolor. All right, guys, hopefully again you can see what is happening in that piece as it starts to dry. And I can't take it off now, but I think that it's really fun to experiment with. All right, happy arting.